Welcome back. This is a slightly longer session, but that's because it's one of the most important. It's the guts of what it is to be a marketer, is to find out better ways to understand your customers and what motivates them. And I'm going to try and give you some hopefully cost-effective and easy clues about ways that we can do that just a little bit better. The first thing I'd really want to get across to you is, although some of you and many may be doing feedback forms, online surveys, or things where you get customers to rate your service or rate your company in some way already, it's really important that you don't confuse ratings with customer understanding. Ratings are useful, but they're mostly about getting trends of how good or how bad your business is going. It's just kind of a traffic light. Are you on the right track or are you on the wrong track? The people who answer these are often not typical. They're often people who are a little bit more polite or a little bit more impolite, or perhaps, are just annoyed with you. You need to properly get inside the head of all your customers in one way or another. And I think that's actually one of the competitive advantages of small businesses. The fact that you can get close to your customers in a way that major businesses don't. The big businesses of the world, the Coca-Colas or whatever, have to employ people that are major researchers like I've been previously in my career, because they don't talk to all their customers regularly. You're much closer to your customers. You should take advantage of that. Let's talk then about how you can do that. So if you can't rely on feedback forms or whatever, where do you get this kind of information? How do you get closer? Well, we're going to talk a lot about talking to customers. It's pretty basic and it's got to be part of your everyday job. But there are a lot of other things. Have a look at this list on the slide. I'm not going to read it out, but you can see I challenge you to think about which of these things are you doing. Are you spending time analysing other examples of marketing that seems to work? Are you talking to distributors and suppliers or whatever? Are you visiting your competition and checking them out all the time? You can do some market research. I would warn you as a marketing insights professional that it's quite easy to get surveys and focus groups wrong, and you can get dangerously bad information if you don't do them right. So it's worth doing a little bit of self-learning and advice before you put that simple survey up. One thing that people don't think of is getting a group of trusted acquaintances to give you honest feedback about your marketing and your business and your services. And I say acquaintances because often people that are close to you, or your friends or your family, may not like to give you bad news, or they may have a perspective that is too in-depth and too critical. So if you can get some people that you trust who are willing to just give you a little bit of look-see, that can be a useful thing when you haven't got the money to do professional research. But top of your list in terms of getting information is basically getting better about talking to your customers. And that's thinking about them in more depth. And that's what we're going to talk about in this session a bit more. Essentially, for those of you who saw my earlier presentation on customer motivations in the crisis, what the hell's happening, you'll know that I said that SMEs suffer from getting a little bit too much of the tell anybody anytime superficial kind of information. What we're trying to do is find ways to drill down the levels of information that people give you to get a little bit more depth. Motivations occur at different depths and people's willingness to describe them. What we're trying to do as small and medium enterprise owners, in order to establish information, is start to establish practices that let us get a little bit more depth. These don't have to be super hard or difficult things to do. You, at a very superficial level, can simply create a little diary of comments. You get comments all the time, or read that every so often, try and work out what's happening. And when people give you a comment, good or bad, not only record it, but don't accept it at face value. Maybe just ask them, oh, why do you say that? Get into the habit of asking a follow-up question. Then the next step is observing. Just watching people, whether it's about how they navigate your website or what they're doing in store, what's their body language, and try and talk to them about alternate choices. So a good question is simply, oh, I wonder if you ever use Joe's down the road. Why don't you use Joe down the road? What's different about them and us? Then, to get a little bit deeper, a really simple thing you can do is every so often get a few key customers, buy them a coffee, sit down and empathise with them. You don't have to get into super personal details, but you can just talk on a more informal basis about why they like your shop versus another. It's really worth a small investment of time and energy to get that kind of information. I'll talk in another session though about how you select those customers. They can't be just the ones you really like. And then it's probably worth at some stage doing a little more formal delving research if you can afford it, especially if you're a medium business, just to try and understand your customers in even more depth. But some of that you can do with imagination alone, and I'm going to talk about that and that process and how you can do that more easily. Then I talked about the really deep motivations, the things about values and lifestyle and how people see the world. You may not be able to afford the kind of research that gets into that level of detail and depth, but you can piggyback off what the big players are doing and watch what they're doing. So a big brand that has got similar sorts of customers to yours, what kind of advertising, how are they changing their branding and style, generally become interested in the marketing of people who are after the same sort of target audience as you. So these are simple things that you can do without much cost to try and build your understanding of your customers. The other thing I want to talk about here is the key is listening, not just talking to customers. Look, a lot of you are entrepreneurs because, well, you're really very good at talking. You really can tell a sales pitch. You're really involved. You care about your business. That's good and that's great. But sometimes, I'm sorry to say, that can kind of shut you off from giving the customer a chance to feel comfortable about talking to you about what's really happening. So I don't know if that describes you, but you need to be very self-aware of that. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you feel, look, I am not the most empathetic and best listener, I don't draw people out well to talk about their deeper motivations, get some help. It might be just a more empathetic member of your family or friends, or it might be professional researchers of some sort. Don't just sit people down and only hear what the good things are that they're saying. So let's talk about who you talk to. I want to talk about a different way of kind of segmenting the customers that you should talk to. Let's imagine you're Mike's Garage, right, somewhere. This graph, I think, reflects customer attitudes to a typical small business. I'll bet it's something like this. There's a group of people who thinks you're just absolutely fantastic. You're the shit-hot ones. You're a really good business. There's another group, hopefully a smaller group, but still probably a significant group, who have had a bad experience or whatever, who don't like the look of your face, whatever reason. They think you're total assholes, Mike. And then there's a group, and it's almost certainly the largest group, who think you're sort of all right. Hey, it's a bunch of mechanics, they're okay, they do the job. What you need to know first of all is that you need to get a selection of these people from all of these groups to try and talk to. It's really important that you don't talk to just the people that love you. So where I tell clients to start is with the haters. It's really important you understand who the haters are and what they're feeling and why they hate you. For a few reasons. First of all, you're probably underestimating the numbers of them. That's partly human nature. We don't want to believe there's a group of people who don't like us. And it's also sometimes measurement issues. These are people that just kind of go away. They've had a bad experience, so they don't want anything more to do with you, so it's hard to get their reactions. But they can ruin your reputation. They can be an early warning sign of real problems that you have. True, some of them just may be weirdos. There is people that just love to complain. But many, and probably most, won't be. So one of the things you've got to do is seek out, and it's particularly important to follow up negative feedback. It will give you the clues about the things you need to fix. The second group you really need to get to know is the lovers. Now, what I'd tell you about the people that say they really love you is that you have to distinguish between whether they're kind of normal customers, people that are typical for your category or sector, or are they kind of product category nerds? In the case of Mike's Garage, are they just people who really, really love cars and love talking about it? And because Mike knows about cars, they talk to him all the time. If they're kind of typical car owners, you know, you've got lots of people who are just ordinary car owners, but they love you. You need to spread their love. You need to get their endorsements or whatever and make sure that people know that these people really care about you. If they're not, if you've got a group of lovers who are basically category nerds or sector nerds, the first thing to ask yourself is, do they need specialist support? Do you need to have someone who really deals with the people that bring in the cars and talk about them a lot? And then you've got to ask, is your business too orientated around with them? Because they tend to be the people that are always giving you feedback, they're giving you positive reinforcements, they're talking to you all the time. Are you making your business suit the people that really love it? All of us have been somewhere, some kind of business where we have been involved, we've been on a forum, on a website, where it's something that we're kind of interested in, but our opinions are denigrated by the people that love it. The whole system and organization of the website or group tends to be around the real lovers, and we feel a bit out of place. Make sure that you're not orientating your business just around the people that love you. The second thing another thing to ask about them is, how do you maintain their loyalty? Because they are probably people who spend more. Is there add-ons that you could sell them? So you should be talking to them not just about your category, but what else do they need and what makes them stay loyal. A really important reason why you need to talk to these people in more depth is to specifically ask them for endorsements or quotes, things that you can use in your marketing. You may also want to try and use them to give other people support and to get feedback on new ideas. So you need to know the lovers. And that takes me to how you talk to people. One of the most important things about asking a customer for feedback is to make sure you ask the right kind of questions, the kind of open-ended questions that force them to give a more detailed reply. So not, how do you like our store, which tends to get very general, polite answers like, yeah, it's good, yeah, you're okay. What does that tell you? What can you do with that? Yes, they like it. Why? What about it? So how much they like your website or your store is actually not the key question. The key questions are things like, how could we improve our store or our website or our services? And what would make you want to visit or use us more often? What would make you want to recommend us? Those kind of questions provide more honest, more specific answers because I have to think about it. I don't have to just say, oh, generally you're okay. You get answers like, well, I'd like to use you more often, but you close early and I don't get out of work till 7 o'clock. It allows you to be more open to negative feedback. And as I said before, that's often the most useful. After you've talked to a few customers in whatever way you've done it, and talked to a few more of the kinds of customers you don't usually talk to, the passables, the haters or whatever, I want you to then do, it's a really important exercise, is to imagine one customer and their reaction to all your marketing. That helps you keep it focused. So what I encourage all of my clients to do of any level is to imagine what I call their Maria, this imaginary customer who they need to carry in their head whenever they're thinking about work, whenever they're thinking about customers. Not just as someone you use to design you and help you think about your next piece of marketing, but as you observe what the styling and look of your business is, you're imagining Maria and thinking how she'd react to it. So I want you to imagine your Maria, and your Maria should be a fairly typical customer, the kind that will be valuable to you, but not a super lover, someone who is useful and that you'd want to have. And give them a name. It doesn't have to be Maria, it could be Marcus, it could be Matthew, as long as it begins with M, you know, any you like. And you may, if you're a bigger business, need one or two to represent major different customers. But don't have too many. You want someone you carry in your head, someone you're imagining all your time, like kind of your best friend who really tells you the truth and will answer you when you're thinking about them, about what you should do. So you're always thinking, how would Maria respond to that new promotion? You've got to have that persona in mind all the time. So to do that, I want you to get a big piece of paper and try and develop a full picture of Maria or Marcus or whatever. And the sort of things you're writing down is who she or he is. I mean, obviously their age and gender, but also things like their life stage. Are they empty nesters? Are they young singles? Are they a student? What's their family size? What's their relationships? Who else do they have to think about when they're doing buying? What's their shopping style and habits? Where does she live? What's their interest? What sort of tribes does she belong to? Is she someone who likes to hang out in coffee shops and drink latte? Is she a great sporting enthusiast? Does she play women's rugby? What the heck is she like? Where does she hang out? What kind of media does she use? And then you need to think about Maria's relationship to the category. So that and there's two levels to this. There's the rational ones, the things that she has to consider about your product. Before she can use your service or product, what are the kind of price limits that she operates with? What sizes or variants or what? Who does she have to consider? Those are the things that are functional needs that whether she likes it or not, she has to consider when she's going to buy for you. And then try and think about her emotional needs and motivations. What kind of styles, what sort of feelings about status or prestige, what sort of worries about environmental impact, effect on health, how does she want others to perceive her? All those kind of fuzzy emotional things that pull or push people towards using a product or a service. Try and think about a few of these. Try and put yourself inside her head. And that's why it's quite important to talk to a few customers before you do this exercise. Then as you're thinking about her needs, I want you to try and put them in two levels. When anybody looks at your product or service, be it a cafe or a website selling new apps, there are things that people expect, just have to have. You know, in a coffee shop it's good coffee, but they're basics for your sector. That may be for if you're selling children's swings, reasonable safety standards. They may want a decent warranty. These are things that everybody, if they're going to compete at all, just has to offer. They're what we call in marketing hygiene features. If you don't have them, you fail, but if you do have them, they may not differentiate you from other businesses. Then try and think about what is it Maria actually uses to decide between the alternatives. If everybody has reasonable safety when she's out looking for a child's swing, what else does she look? Does she look at style or the status or think about what it looked like in the garden? Does she think if it's made out of environmentally friendly materials? What are the things that help her decide? So that's really my marketing lesson number 3, that customer information is key. And a lot of you out there, I know, you think you know your market, your customers. I'm going to challenge you and say you probably don't know them as well as you should. Never assume you know who they are and why they buy. Try and get some information about your customers before you start marketing. It is the thing that makes marketing better. And you need to seek honest reaction to your current service and product from a cross-section of customers. You need to know a little bit about their demographics and their buying, but really what you need to know is more about their needs, how they use their products, what do they think are necessities, and what do they think are things that distinguish between different alternatives in your category. Now, go away and do it. Get a big piece of paper, get your sticky notes or however you do your brainstorming, and spend at least 15 or 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes. Maybe get one of your trusted acquaintances to help you imagine your Maria. Maybe do it with your staff. But try and imagine your Maria, the person you're going to carry around with you while we're doing all the rest of this stuff. And then I'd like you to be, again, I ask you for deep honesty. How hard do you find it to imagine Maria? How clear an idea if you have for your version of Maria, of her needs and aspirations and so on? If you give yourself 1 star, she's still not clear in my mind. Go out and talk to more customers, talk to others who might have it, talk to your staff. Okay, it will help. Honest, it will help. If you get 2 stars, yeah, let's go on. Let's continue with these talks. But as you go, try and refine your idea of Maria. Some of the things that we'll do, I think, will help you refine your idea of Maria. And if you're 3 stars, well, good on you. But keep monitoring and refining, and never be totally certain that you know exactly what your customers are like. Okay, I hope you found that a useful exercise. In the next session, I want to take that idea of Maria and start you thinking about what you can do to differentiate your service or your product for her. What can you do to make your service a bit more unique and a bit more competitive versus the competition? Okay, see you then.